Hello again, and welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
And once again, we're pre-taping, this time the Thursday before our Monday air. And basically, there may still be post whatever they post on the last debate, but I don't want to deal with the individual debaters per se. I'd like to look at it from the broader coverage of media assessment and media handling of the debates, because I don't want to jump down into the cauldron of bad-mouthing CNN, but I was appalled at the way CNN ran that debate for 2 nights in a row, because a debate is supposed to have individuals exchanging positions, and then after they've exchanged and talked about their positions, then they can challenge or elucidate or whatever. As far as I was concerned, the way CNN set up their format, it was basically, why don't I pit you against you by asking a question about what you had to say and why you decided you didn't like what you had to say.
But that's what the candidates were doing off camera, well, on camera actually, but not in an organized form. They were just backbiting each other.
I think they were doing that because of the nature of the way the parameter was framed.
Okay.
Because if you start out by saying, Senator Blow, you had a position that said up is down and down is up. Mm-hmm. Senator Schmo said Senator Blow might not really know what Senator Blow is talking about. Mm-hmm. What do you have to say about that?
Okay.
I mean, let me ask you something. What's your response going to be when you get a question like that?
But this is what they were doing anyhow. This is the way the press was handling them when they were individually interviewing people out when they were out stumping. This is the kind of activity that was going on. They were criticizing their opponents. There's a circus atmosphere to this.
I'm going to tell you, one thing that I had noticed about the way the Democrats, with gazillion candidates in there, their party line was, we're not in this to tear each other down. That was the party line that I kept out. I mean, Bob, you got to correct me if I'm wrong. But what I was seeing prior to that particular format was they weren't attacking each other on the stump. They were playing nice with each other. I'm just saying, Bob, I got to hear your take on it, because I may have missed something that Ray caught that I didn't catch.
I just thought that maybe the CNN format was designed to generate clickable quotes, if you know what I mean.
I'm sure that's part of it.
Exactly why it was designed.
That's part of it.
I wouldn't even argue with you on that. I believe that's exactly why they set it up that way.
And goes to exactly what you said. They're trying not to go up against each other because Democrats know how to implode. I mean, they do that really well.
And we're on that road right now.
I agree with you there.
They do that normally naturally, so why would CNN be trying to exacerbate that with
because
that type
they can
of
make
format
money off
for
of
their
it.
That's just
they
it.
can make money from it, you know.
I mean, it's not even
loves a circus.
It's not even football season, but they're trying for ratings. They're trying for something engaging on TV. And how do you make 10 people a night engaging? That's pretty tough to begin with.
It certainly is.
Yes, but I remembered all these media folks saying, you know what? In 2016, we fell for the shiny object. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We did not do a damn thing about talking positions and policies and blah, 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 blah. We're not going to fall into that trap in the upcoming elections. I heard that across the board. So if that's basically what they claimed, the trap they were not going to fall in, why would they set up parameters for let's talk argument as opposed to policy? Because guess what? One thing I will say for the Democrats, even though they were defending themselves, they're actually defending policies.
Yes.
So there was an interesting line that came out of more than one particular candidate's mouths within the 2 nights. Was, at least we got some ideas. Some may be small, some may be big, but I'd take any Democrat on this stage over the guy that's in the White House now.
Right.
And so that came out of more than one person's mouth within the 2 nights of the last 2 debates. And I believe in the first debate, similar sentiments were voiced. So I don't want to keep beating up on debate because we got a lot of other stuff to talk about within the context of media coverage. Your take on where things are now that we've had not two nights recently, but two actual Democratic debates with a gazillion candidates. Do you think anything untoward has changed within the context of a couple of months with these two sets of debates coming in?
I don't see any. I don't see anything changing. I see what has been happening all along, escalating. As I say, you know my feelings on this. First of all, the circus atmosphere with how many candidates are there now? 24 or something like that. It's over 23.
Right,
it's over
right.
At least
20.
23.
Okay, I don't know who half of them are, to tell you the truth, because I just haven't followed it. It's we're killing ourselves. We're a piranha in a tank attacking each other, and I don't want to have any part of it, to tell you the truth. I will vote when it comes time. I will have made up my mind by that time. But these campaigns started the day they started January 21st, 2016.
Don't blame the Democrats for that.
I'm not blaming the Democrats for that. They had to get on. They had to get on the stick. I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's the whole thing is
no.
absurd.
It's not that they had to get on the stick. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but didn't Donald Trump, before he even swore himself in, already had his re-election campaign officially announced?
Well, he actually never
stopped
He never
campaigning.
stopped
But no, I mean officially.
Yes.
Officially.
Yes.
I mean,
He
we're
did.
talking, trying to give our viewers
No,
you're
some
right.
actual updates,
You're right.
news-wise.
Did he actually?
Oh, yeah.
Well, he never shut it down, but he made an announcement that we will.
Our re-election campaign is now
on the
up
way.
and running, right.
Well,
And-
it's been.
And
obvious.
so he has the war chest. He has he's quoted every day because he tweets like a well, I want to say, well, he tweets like a moron. Let's just put it that way.
We'll go
well,
into the tweets
Yeah.
because that now gets to the other issue that you sent our link to, because there are two ways we can approach it. Donald Trump is a racist. We said that from the time he
Absolutely.
came down the escalator. I mean, Media Watch, like we pat ourselves on the back the last time, and we also beat up on ourselves because I said, well, nobody's pulling our strings. We don't have any corporate
Right.
bosses to answer to,
Right.
so we can call it like it is, which we do. But the point that I want to get to is the last of the diehards is still Fox and Fox people, and they will twist themselves into pretzels to not call this man a racist.
Right.
And so they have all kinds of strange things and all that. But you raise a good point in some of the talk to us about the stories that you came across about black journalists within the working news media and mainstream media because of this racist president and what it does to them on a day-to-day.
Let me ask you a question before you get into that.
Sure.
Has the media ever called a sitting president a racist? I mean, because there have been racist presidents in my lifetime, not to mention those before me.
In the modern era, no.
No one.
Right.
No.
In the
okay.
modern era, no president has ever been called a racist
Right.
by the news media.
There's been multiple reasons for that. Some of them, but
No, the history that we gave on the last show about Ronald Reagan kicking off his 1980 campaign with a racist setting,
yes.
Yes.
they still didn't call him a racist.
Right.
Okay, they knew exactly his dog whistle tactic, and they reported it to the public that this was an attempt to appeal to white supremacists. They didn't call them white supremacists outright back then. They called them to appeal to the Klan and its membership.
Right.
That's basically the way it was.
As far as they went.
They didn't call him a racist, but they knew that he was playing dog whistle politics and he was regurgitating the Richard Nixon playbook. But today, we've got a guy in the White House who just flat out is a racist, makes no bones about it. And even though he will deny, I don't have a racist bone in my body, well, yeah, every fiber and cell of your body is racist. So
And he'll come back and say, African Americans love me. And he'll say that right on the White House lawn. And it's to the point where I almost throw my shoes through my TV every time he says something as stupidly.
Big lie.
and his support among African Americans is like 8%. I mean, that's
Is it that high?
Yeah, well,
exactly.
That's what you say every time you hear that figure. You say that every time you hear that figure. and I understand because I don't understand how he even gets 1%.
Right.
But they're crazy. Our race is not devoid of crazy people, folks.
Right.
I don't care. We're not immune from craziness.
Well, I remember when the Democratic convention was here, and I forget what year that the Republican convention was here. Excuse me. they somehow made it into the garden.
The recent one when they penned the reporters in
Yes.
pens for the first time? Yeah,
Yes,
that was
yeah.
just about 12 years ago or
Yeah,
something.
and I remember stumbling into one of the hotels. I think I had like low-level media credentials, and there was a sign in a hotel room that said "Brothers for Bush," and
Oh,
you know,
really?
yeah, and
That's even hysterical, even today.
yeah. So yeah,
So yeah, we
There's
do
a-
have crazy.
there's a segment that no matter what,
I like that BB.
yes,
Hey, listen, it was catchy. They
Yeah,
understood.
yeah,
They
yeah,
understood.
you know.
What was it? Log lines and
Yeah.
and medium one line. But no, to get to where we are today,
Yeah, okay.
because the guy's an outright racist. He makes no bones about it, even though he denies being a racist. Just like he says, African Americans love me. Well, big lies are big lies. They come out of his mouth. If his lips are moving, he is lying. Okay,
Basically.
we have said that more than once, but. Those stories are crucial. We need to get into it before we use up our time.
yeah. But on the issue of race, I mean, both of you have worked in a big corporate media setting, and I'm a former newspaper reporter, and we all dealt with the AP style book.
Right.
And the AP style book for years has been cautioning reporters on how to report race and what words you should use and not to use this word unless it's absolutely necessary to get the gist of the story across.
Properly. Yes.
That has now evolved to AP has new guidelines. AP style book.
I'd like to see the revised.
Yeah,
edition,
has
yeah.
new guidelines, and basically they say if it's racial or racist, say it. And we have a number of black organizations, NABJ. The president just put out a little note saying that we need to embrace what the AP revision asks us to do and go say it when it's there. If it's racist, racial, say it. Of course, you got to back it up. You know, you're going to be a quality journalist. You're going to have to back it up with facts. So that's where, and I shared a couple clips with you guys. That's what it's basically saying. Call it, you know, if it looks like a duck, walk like a duck. You know, let the duck.
Yeah. So we've never shied away from that here. But here's the thing. Matter of fact, I was watching both CNN and MSNBC and on how they were handling the Tweetstorm that occurred a week and a half ago. By the time our show airs, it'll probably be 2 weeks because we're going to air on a Monday. It'll have been 2 weekends back when the occupant of the White House, as one of the squad calls him.
Right.
We used to call him the Orange Julius. I like the occupant in the White House. but the Orange Julius in the
Yes.
White House.
Another term that I won't use.
Yes,
The
yes,
Orange
right.
Julius in the White House.
You and I have plenty of terms that we don't want to use right now.
He
though they're-
fired
yes.
He fired off these racist tweets, and pretty much he was attacking Elijah Cummings, the representative from Maryland, whose district includes the city of Baltimore, and one of our resource persons, Pearl Duncan, sent me actually gave me an irate phone call because one of the CNN anchors, black male who was from Baltimore, raised in Baltimore, was totally irate and incensed. But the reason why Pearl was upset was because he broke down in tears on air, okay? And because the psychic stress for him with this guy calling his hometown a rodent-infested thing that no human would want to live in, which he reserves for people of color and communities of color, infestations, all these rodent rats, infestations, those are his key words for communities of color, people of color, etc. Those are all his references. And so the psychic toll was too much for this black anchor. Pearl was highly incensed because figure out, if you're angry, you're angry. You don't cry. You call them out. You do whatever. And you might lose. You might say something not quite kosher on the air to call them out. You don't break down and cry. But you sent another link.
That's interesting.
Yeah, you
The
sent
way she
another link.
reacted to that, but
Yeah, well, I don't blame her.
Yeah.
I mean, we come out of when we were in the trenches back
Yeah.
in the 60s and 70s. If you didn't have a thick skin,
Yes.
and if you weren't ready to stand up and go toe-to-toe with
Right.
people, including some of your fellow people in your newsroom,
Right.
when they got too crazed and racist.
Right.
I mean, I remember back in the day, some guy picked up a typewriter and threw it
Okay.
at somebody, okay? This was a guy at WCBS back at the time, back in the day. I had to restrain myself from going across the desk at least once because it may not have been an overt racial thing, but I was the only black on that assignment desk at the time, and the job that should have been mine, this guy wanted to give to somebody else, and then had the nerve to insult my intelligence by telling me, well, I don't want you here, I don't want you there, I want you in the middle because I need a strong man in the middle. And this is the main desk, and this is the other main desk, national, international. Guy in the middle is just an assistant to these two people, and I'm the senior guy. He doesn't want to give me either desk.
Right.
And so when he tells me this, I need a strong man in the middle, I almost went across the desk to strangle him. Okay, so now here's the thing. I didn't go across the desk because I'd have been fired, and I would have been probably thrown in jail for assault.
Yes.
Okay, I had enough smart. But if I were an on-camera guy, I might have been reading the riot act to somebody through my television screen in words that might have been costing the network a fine for bad language.
Little FCC fine, sure.
So this is the kind of psychic stuff that black journalists have had to deal with from the time we started working in mainstream media, from the time Mal Good broke the color barrier at ABC News back in the early mid-60s. Any black person that came in, producer, reporter, you name it, they were going to be faced with this wall of we don't want you here, and you have to work twice as hard, you have to be proving yourself 6 times over. You went through it, I went through it. You sent a link about a guy who was an AP reporter, male reporter, I forget, the guy who was at some convention. Actually, while Bob is trying to find that link, folks, what we're saying is the black journalists out in the media have no problem knowing racism when they encounter it, because they encounter it day to day in their work environment. Then they have to go out and cover it when somebody else in the position of power who should not be using and acting racist and white supremacist like, and actually being a white supremacist and a racist. And then they have to deal with editors who don't want their copy to come out and say that this is a racist person doing racist things. And that is why the NABJ president had to go tweet, follow the AP style book, now that they've changed it and updated it. And if the guy's racist, call him racist. If he tweets racist stuff, call them racist tweets. Don't say racially tinged, don't come up with euphemisms.
Right.
That's basically where we are in today's media coverage of this guy in the White House and his enablers. We're going to get to his enabler.
Okay,
give me your thing.
Well, I mean, some of the items in this political story just go to what you just said: the psychic impact on reporters of color. There's a woman, and I think I follow her on Twitter. She goes under the Twitter name of Ida Bay Wells. And she says that while some of your reporters are out here talking about how reporting on Trump is fun, your black and brown colleagues are having to deal with the psychic impacts of his racism. Maybe try considering that this is neither a game nor entertaining for many, many Americans. And when April Ryan was here for a talk a few blocks away a few months ago, she said that she almost had to go for help, because of the psychic pressure of dealing with the insults from Trump, having
on
people
a day-to-day basis
on a
in the White House.
She has
a White House reporter for Urban Contemporary Networks.
Yeah, and she had to. She has a new house, but she doesn't want to say where it is because she wants to protect her.
Sure.
So it's this type of the psychic pressure we have to call, and the story basically says you have to call out racism as you see it, not be afraid to talk about it, and the National Association of Black Journalists saying the same thing here.
Yeah. So the bottom line is this guy's in the White House being a racist. The Democrats have no problem calling him a racist. The Republicans can't quite manage that. Yeah. Okay? So you've got two political parties. The party that's actually in control of the House but not in control of the Senate has no problem saying the guy in the White House is a racist, and he does racist things, and they point out the policies he enacts because of his racism are policies that impact people and communities of color, and everything that he's done, cutting stuff that supposedly is going to hurt people of color, but when you cut SNAP and food stamps and stuff like that, you think you're hurting black and brown people, but more white people are in food stamps than black and brown people. Most Americans don't know that, and the dummy in the White House definitely doesn't know that. So when he says, oh yeah, let's cut those people's programs, he's hurting more poor white people than he's hurting black people. But because he's a dummy, he doesn't know it. The problem is, most white people also don't know it, and so they're not crying foul because they think, oh yeah, he's knocking off those black and brown freeloaders.
I mean, the poorest family I ever met in my reporting life was on a farm, a really poor farm in Racine County. A kid had gotten lost, and they found him. He was fine, but I saw the family's house, which had more transparent wrap on the windows rather than glass. I mean, the stuff that poor people put on their car windows when they can't afford. So, I mean, it was just as poor as I've ever seen anyone, and it was a farm family, not what a city kid is expecting to see.
And this was a white farm family.
Yes.
You see, and that's the difference. The point of the matter that look, back in the 60s and 70s, when they were talking about people on welfare, in most newsrooms, I can tell you, most of the people in the newsrooms thought most of the people on welfare were black people.
No.
Because we researched that stuff.
Yeah.
We knew that no, we were not the largest population. At the time, we may have been the largest minority segment of the population, but there were more poor white people in the country than black people. And just by sheer numbers, it was going to turn out that more white people were on welfare than black people, just by sheer numbers of population.
Absolutely.
But because they were just as poor and economically impacted by whatever unemployment statistics, it's usually 3 and 4 times larger in black communities. But the poor white folks that are unemployed, in need of welfare, in need of food stamps and all that, they outnumbered black and brown families. That's the way it was then, and that's the way it is now. Okay, but you can't tell that to most poor white people because they think that they are the upstanding, hardworking folks who fate has put on hard times, and those black and brown people are the freeloaders.
Right.
That's what we're up against. Okay, so that's a little off the beaten path.
Yes, but it's a good.
But it ties into the fact that it is this racial class dynamic that this man has been stoking to the point where people like Ocasio-Cortez and Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Ayanna Pressley, those 4 female freshman congresswomen that he has maligned with his racist tweets, lied about them in big time stuff about how totally anti-Semitic they are and how unpatriotic. Now we got some news guy on Fox who's shouting something or other about Tlaib. Is it Tlaib? One of the freshman congressmen having ties or Al-Qaeda interests or something. Well, I'd have to call it up, but but it's another Fox person, okay? And so what this loop that he feeds Fox stuff and Fox feeds him stuff, this is a toxic, very public loop that's causing serious possible physical harm to these people. Just because that's why they have to now worry about who protects them and where they go, but the president of the United States is causing this vote.
Yes,
with his racism and his racist tweets and his unabashedly thing.
And we have 3.5 minutes.
I was just going to say he's bringing it to the surface, but it's always been there. You know, it was more subtle in the past.
Yes.
But yeah, he's bringing it out.
And speaking of
full-fledged because he's made it okay to do.
Speaking of the past, and I won't spend a lot of time on this. There was something on the local channel WABC on a 1978 documentary someone unearthed about the Rosedale neighborhood in Queens. And in the documentary, this black family moves into Rosedale, and there are these white protests, and the bunch of little kids, black kids, see the protests, and they stop. And a group of very young white children go up and call them the N-word, and you can hear this in the documentary. And it's just revealing about where it was and what it is today, and just astounding. But it's the
1978.
and the guy's name is Solar Eclipse without the R, SOLA Eclipse, and you'll see that documentary.
1978. Remember,
Yes.
remember the last show, what I said, that between 78 and 82, all this white supremacist stuff that we're seeing in the 21st century, that's what was visiting this country. And that's when Ronald Reagan, as he was doing his run-up to running for president, he saw all that stuff and he tapped into it. I'm repeating myself from the last show, but he launched his re-election attempt to gain the Republican nomination for president in 1980, or he had gained the nomination and he kicked off his campaign in 1980 in Neshoba County, Philadelphia, Mississippi, just so he could appeal to the Klan and Klan sympathizers and get that Southern Democratic vote to swing Republican. Okay,
Which is what he knew he needed.
That's what he knew he needed to win. This guy coming down the escalator said, it worked for Nixon and it worked for Reagan. I'm going to let it work for me. But they use dog whistles. I'm just going to trumpet my racism with a megaphone. And he's been trumpeting it with a megaphone from the time he came down the escalator. You got how much time?
You have 1 minute.
Well, the other media coverage story we should get into is Moscow Mitch, the guy who's enabling Donald Trump to be a racist president because he will bring nothing to the floor that might upset Donald Trump, and he won't even harden our election facilities, even though Bob Mueller and the Joint Senate Committee both say Russians tried to kill our election in all 50 states, and they're back again, and the Democrats passed bills in the House and said harden it. And Mitch McConnell said, no, I'm not bringing these things up for vote. So Joe Scarborough called him Moscow Mitch. He took to the Senate floor and called it McCarthyism.
Okay, 15.
Ocasio-Cortez, of course, says, no, it's not McCarthyism. You're actually doing something that's actually not good for the country, whereas McCarthy stuff charges were bogus.
Okay.
This has been Media Watch, folks. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony. See us on YouTube and Twitter at Media Watch EVT.
And I'm Raymond Peterson, although you may not see this.
Catch you the next time.